Diamond Sutra, it's quite inconceivable, and there's a lot of concepts in there which are quite strange to newcomers. You really have to build up your foundation in knowing Buddhism before you understand it. But we already have discussed this sutra for months, and every time when I'm not here, we stop, but now we should resume. Recently, there has been a lot of construction going on because we are building some extensions to the two buildings, because we're trying to make this into a monastery. In the future, there will be more monks from China coming, and there will be monks coming from different countries too. So we have a shortage of rooms. So we're going to build about 9 to 10 rooms in that location, and we're going to increase the area of the kitchen in here, and we're going to have 2 classrooms on the second floor. In the future, we plan to make into a monastery in which we can study Buddhism. We want to increase the academic atmosphere, the philosophy atmosphere of this temple. So it will be geared to just the studies of Buddhism, and not so much on the ceremonies, but more concentrating on the philosophies. So we really have to plan for the future. So that's why we are doing construction. We have 9 rooms in there. We have a big kitchen in there. We have 2 classrooms, one in there and the other one in there. And that should finish the major project that I have undertaken 28 years ago, 30 years ago. In 1980, I came to Vancouver, and I started this from a piece of barren land. And right now it's a temple. So it's a wish come true. So it boils down to saying that whenever you have a wish to benefit sentient beings, that wish will materialize. Whatever wish to make, as long as you are persistent with it, as long as you plan it out, causality will make it come true. And what is causality? We'll talk about it later. It covers a lot in the Buddhist philosophy about causality. Simultaneous causality, sometimes they call it. There's a lot of very profound philosophies in Buddhism. For example, one of it is Yogacara. Yogacara, you heard of Yogacara? Yoga, you have Yoga, Yogacara. Yogacara is the study of the mind, how the mind functions, how the mind works. So Buddhism is a lot about the mind. By the way, there is recently a book published. The name of the book is called 1,000 Miles Without a Cloud. It's by an author. I forgot the author's name. Her last name is Su, S-U, and she is a Chinese. She studies in New York, in Britain, and then she went to New York later. And she became a writer and a producer of documentary films. And she traveled all by herself from China to the Silk Road. That's why the name of the book is called 1,000 Miles Without a Cloud. When you're on a desert, you don't see any cloud. You just see the sky, and when you look down, it's just the desert, sand and sky. And she made a wish that she wanted to follow the same route as Xuanzang, the monk Xuanzang. There was a monk 1,300 years ago approximately who traveled all the way from China to India to study What did he want to study? Yogacara. He wanted to study the school of thought of Yogacara. There's so many schools of thoughts in Buddhism, especially from 2,600 to 1,300 years ago. I mean, from the 5th century to about the Tang dynasty in China, which is 1,300 years. So, you really have to work out the calculation of all this time. So she traveled all the way from Xi'an province of China, adopting the same route as Xuanzang, the intrepid monk, the adventurous monk, who traveled all by himself to the Silk Road, across the Himalayas. And he traveled for 2.5 years. Just the traveling is 2.5 years. And finally, he reached northern India. And he spent a lot of time studying in the Nalanda University. Nalanda University, it's in, I think it's in, right now they call it Bihar or something like that, in northern India, where he studied Yogacara under the monk, a very renowned monk in India at that time by the name Silabhatra, who specializes in Yogacara. So this monk spent, somebody said, 17 years, some 13 years studying in India, and became an expert in Buddhism. More than just that, he became the teacher of a king in India. And later he brought back all the sutras or sutras to China and set up a translation academy of 800 to 900 people to translate all these sutras into Chinese. That's the reason why China, as far, has the most resourceful Buddhist literature in the world, because of all these feats undertaken by all these adventurous monks who traveled to China to learn and brought back the literature. Not just this one monk, this particular Xuanzang, this monk, spent 17 years in India. There are other monks who spent 7, 8 years and all that. There's a whole, there are many monks who travel all the way to India just to learn and brought back the literature. And some archaeologists in the 18th century started to excavate relics from Indian soil based on autobiographies of these Chinese monks. And of course, one of the autobiographies was written by Xuanzang. And many famous archaeologists, I think there's a very famous one called Cunningham, who used Xuanzang's autobiography to start digging many years in the 18th century. And they found a lot of relics. They found a lot of sutras written in Sanskrit, and they translated. And based on the sutras, they translated into English too. And that's the reason why some people question the authenticity of some of the sutras and translated by the Chinese. But then later, the archaeologists found out, excavated a lot of these sutras from the earth, and they translated into English, because a lot of Western scholars, they study Sanskrit too. They translate Sanskrit into English. They found that the translation was almost 90% accuracy. So no, I'm concentrating on my Diamond Sutra. So that's it for beginning, to warm up. So, okay, let's get to this. 2 paragraphs above section 19, it says, why? Because the minds that Tathagata speaks of are not minds, but are expediently called minds. In the Diamond Sutra, for beginners, you may find a lot of, paradoxical, a lot of contradictions. How come the Buddha speaks of, what the Buddha speaks of are not mind. That's why they are called minds. I already explained that. If you don't understand, maybe in the future, I'm going to have this DVD produced for the lectures. You can refer to the DVDs for the previous lectures. Next paragraph. And why? Because Subhuti, neither the past, the present, nor the future mind can be found. In other words, you cannot grasp the past, you cannot grasp the present, certainly you cannot grasp to the future. In the Chinese Zen tradition, the first patriarch is Bodhidharma, who came to China from India in the 6th century, I think, approximately in the 5th or 6th century AD. He's regarded as the first patriarch in China because he traveled from India, from northern India, to all the way to China. Remember, in those ancient times, there were a lot of monks who traveled from China to India to learn Buddhism. There were also a lot of monks traveling from India to China to promote Buddhism. It's a two-way Silk Road. The Silk Road, you ever heard of Silk Road? Very famous Silk Road. And it's both ways. And at that time, transportation was so backward that a lot of people sacrificed their lives en route. In other words, for example, out of 1,000 Chinese monks who traveled from the capital of China to India, maybe about 30% make it. Maybe about 70% die on their way. But they were so adventurous. I think the Chinese civilization they are very adventurous. They like to know the unknown. They like to venture into something that they set up their mind to do. So many of them lost their lives on their way. And there are also monks from India who travel all the way to China, and some of them also sacrificed too. So what we are reading, so the Buddha's teaching is actually what we read in different languages now, is the result of many sacrifices. Right now you're holding, that's why I always remind people, when you're holding a sutra, don't put it on the washroom, don't put it on the ground, on the floor, don't put it on your seat that you can incidentally sit on them, because those were the diamonds, those discovered by people who sacrificed their lives. To you, it's just a few lines of papers, but to them, they even venture their life into getting these treasures. So we always have a reason to tell you what to do. We don't tell you to do something without reason. Oh, why did the monk tell me that I shouldn't put my sutra, I shouldn't read my sutra over the toilet? I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. There's always a meaning to it. And the Buddha's teaching is a teaching that liberates ourselves from life and death to nirvana. Its value cannot be compared. As in the sutra, is always compared to that kind of merits to the sand of the Ganges River. If the merits accrue from reading it, from learning it, is more than the sand in the Ganges River. Can you count all the quantity of sand in the Ganges River in India? No way. Not even the most advanced scientists can do that. So, the first patriarch is Bodhidharma, who was an Indian monk who came to China, who came from China to China from India. He settled down in China, and then the second generation, his disciple, later became his disciple. There's a Chinese monk by the name Huike, Huiko, Huiko. he became his disciple because he heard about the Zen practice of this super monk and went to visit him and asked him about the Dharma. Later he became the disciple, but before he became his disciple, he went to look for him and visit him and ask the Dharma, ask what Buddhism is all about. And Hui Ke respectfully asked the Bodhidharma when he found him, after a long, adventure and a lot of introductions, and he found his dream teacher, and he asked the question, "Please, Venerable, I cannot stop my mind. Can you help me?" That's the first question. In Chinese, it's translated as, "I cannot stop my mind." How can you stop my mind? The mind is always wandering. The mind is always, it's a diluted mind, a delusionary mind, a mind that's non-stop thinking about this and that. We cannot stop our mind because you can't stop your mind. You can't stop your mental afflictions. And of course, you know what mental afflictions are. Every one of us has mental afflictions. What are these? You should know. Your ego, your jealousy, your hatred, violence, fraudulence, negligence, disappointment, fear, depression, anger. You name them. We all have them. Because it works in our mind. And Wei Ke, in the first question, asked, "Please, Venerable, I cannot stop my mind. I don't want these mental afflictions. They haunt me. They bother me. Can I be pure from them? Can I liberate myself from all these mental afflictions?" So he asked, "I cannot stop my mind." That's what it means. "Can you help me?" Bodhidharma said, "Show me this mind of yours, and I'll make it stop." There's a strict translation from the Chinese. And Wei Ke answered, "I've looked everywhere for that mind, and I can't find it." And Bodhidharma then said, "There, I stopped it for you already." So what does it mean? It seems so simple from the words. You know what it means? I don't know. So if you know, you tell me. I have to find out more about it. He says, "I look everywhere for my mind. I can't find it." So you can't find it? There, I stopped it for you already. Do you know? With that, Hui Ke realized the birthless nature of all things. The birthless nature of all things. So, in the ancient days, these monks were so full of wisdom that 1 or 2 sentences will do. You and me, we need years of lectures and we still drown in mental afflictions. To them, just 1 or 2 questions, 1 or 2 answers, they got enlightened. You see the difference between the ancient time people and us? Because we're so drowned in materialism that we lose with everything. We get enriched by materials and we lose our spirituality because we're always striving for more acquisitions, more of this and more of that. And we also drown ourselves, attach ourselves to what? To love, to hatred, to many, many problems. So that's the mind. The mind is what we're looking at. And it says, the Subhuti, neither the past, the present, nor the future mind can be found. Can we find the past? I don't know. Can you find the past? How can we find the past? The past is gone. Past thoughts cannot be found. The past mind, past thought means past mind. Past thoughts cannot be found because past thoughts belong to the diluted mind and belong to the past. It's already gone. We always have a saying, let bygone be bygone. But when you attach to the past, you don't let it go. You never let it go. In the past, somebody has cheated you. You met him again in the road. You're going to give him a few yells of bad words. You remember all these remembrances, recollections come back about how you're being cheated, how you suffer because of that. We always cling to the past. The past divorces, past experiences with family, past experiences with your job, past experiences in school, past experiences in your childhood, all haunted us, haunted you, because you're not forgetful of the past. But can the past actually exist now? The past cannot exist now. The past is only in your mind, which is diluted. You bring it back all the time. If you don't want to bring it back, it's not there. But we are so stupid. I'm not saying you are so stupid. We are so stupid in always saying, how come this, how come that? Because of the past. The past is always haunting us. And because of the past, because of clinging to the past, we have depression, we have a fear, we have disappointment. But when you come to think of it, can you get the past? Is there a reality of the past that exists now? None. The past doesn't exist. The past has already belonged to the past, to last year, to the last moment. If you really have sieved through the diluted reality of the past, you won't hate people. You won't be jealous of people. You forgive. Because you know that you are not intelligent if you cling on to the past. However, people say, then what's the use of history? History recorded the past. What's the purpose of studying history then? History tells us what mistakes we made, what good merits we have done that we should continue, what mistakes we have done that we shouldn't continue. We learn from the past, but we never cling to the past. So let bygone be bygone. There's no past. So neither the past, the present, nor the future mind can be found. How about the present? Well, you told me the past cannot be found. The past is gone. What about the present? I'm living in my present moment. Live your present moment. Can the present be found? How come the Buddha said the present cannot be found? Am I not here now? This is my present moment. I enjoy my present moment. But let me tell you, this present moment, my watch is ticking. This present moment, every tick is gone. Every of this present is gone. It doesn't stay, does it? So the reality of the present is, to us, a delusion. We thought it's actual reality, but it isn't, because every very, very rapid moment belongs to the past. So how can the past be maintained now? How can the present be maintained now? Can you grip onto the present? I cannot. We cannot. The present is not here. Every present moves to the past. So, but does it mean that the past is gone, the present is we cannot maintain? So what do we mean? What do we mean? We don't have any meaning at all. So this My existence here has no meaning? You mean I'm all delusionary? We're talking about a time. The Buddha said, explain to us the phenomena of the universe. But the Buddha said, if you understand all these phenomena, that would make you detach yourself from ego. That will make your delusionary mind turning towards the right point. That would ease you of your attachment. That would liberate you from all the mental afflictions, because you have no attachment. You live happily. You live with meaning, but you don't attach. There's no ego, there's no personality, there's no longevity or continuity, and there's no myriad of things that you should attach to. The four concepts always that mentioned in here. So understanding that, would you still build up that greediness, disappointment, hatred, violence, and forgetfulness, sloth, laziness? The Buddha said, yeah, the past, the present, and the future doesn't exist. But you've got to work at that real mind to bring it out, to gear yourself towards enlightenment. Not just watching the phenomena and understanding that everything is void, everything is empty, everything is not maintainable, so who am I? I just give up. That's not the right way. You got to work your middle way. You got to have more understanding of the universe, yourself, of your relationship with others. So we know that the past cannot be found, the present cannot be found, and how about the future? We're going to be a good person in the future. We're going to work towards the future. When we have future, we have hope. If we don't have a future, we don't have hope. So how can you say the future cannot be found? The future is not coming yet. Why do you have to worry about it? Some people are super worriers. Oh, tomorrow. What's going to be tomorrow? They worry before tomorrow comes. So why worry about it? The reality of that tomorrow is not existing now. Why do you have to attach to that diluted reality? Sure, you can work towards that hope in the future, but don't worry about the future. So the past, the present, and the future, all these three minds, don't attach to them. It's easy to talk about them though. It's easy to talk about this non-attachment than to practice it. When we talk about enlightenment, you know there's three categories of enlightenment that we should know of. The first category, if we can categorize it, you know, being someone who study, we always think of, we categorize things, but assuming that we can categorize it, the first is the original enlightenment. That means the nature of enlightenment. We know that we can enlighten ourselves. We must have that nature. If we do not have that nature, that original enlightenment, we call it originality, or that nature, if we don't have that nature, we can never achieve enlightenment. So the first one that we know, we have that originality of enlightenment. What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. If you don't have that seed in you, if you don't have that seed, how can you see that tree? In other words, if you don't have that nature of being good, how can you be good? You don't even have that nature. So you got to have that nature in there to qualify yourself to become what that nature will bring. If something does not have the nature of H2O, hydrogen and oxygen, it can never be water. It must have that humidity nature. If that nature does not have heat in it, how can it be warm? So you've got to have that nature. And the Buddha said, every sentient being has that nature of being enlightened. It does not matter what religion, what creed. It does not matter who you are. Whether you are a victim of hell, whether you are a bad guy, a good guy, whatever, who you are, you have that nature of becoming the Buddha. Even though you are Roman Catholic, you are Hindu, you are Muslim, it does not matter who you belong to. You have that nature to become the Buddha. You have that nature to become enlightened. So you have that originality. That's the reason why a true Buddhist will accept all religions, would be friendly to all people who believe in it, whether you are Hindu, a Catholic, Christian. We're all compassionate to them because they have that nature of becoming the Buddha. How can we hurt people who have that nature of becoming the Buddha? They are just like us. So remember, the first category, you have that originality, that nature of becoming the Buddha. That's the first category. The second is the awakening enlightenment. What is that awakening enlightenment? That nature is being buried down in your mental afflictions, in your deluded mind. But when you start to listen to the Buddha's teaching, when you start to go to the temple, when you start to learn from your friends, your good friends, from the monks or from whoever friends who are meritorious to you, you're beginning to awaken yourself. That is awakened enlightenment. That means even though you have that nature, if nobody told you, if you don't awaken yourself, that nature will always be hidden. But now somebody wake you up. That is the awakened enlightenment. You're reading your sutra, you're coming for meditation. You know that, there's something more than material. There must be spirituality. There must be a liberation from what I am now. I can be liberated from my suffering. I have a hope. I can liberate from what I am today. So you are awakened. You have that awakened enlightenment. If you do not have that awakened enlightenment, you still have that nature of enlightenment. You still have that nature of being awakened. If you haven't awakened yet, that means you have to wait years. Hopefully, you can be awakened as soon as possible. Which what you are doing now, you already have that awakened enlightenment because you are coming to the temple or you are going about trying to improve your spirituality. That is awakening. It's very important you have awakening because you are awake. Someone who gets drunk all the time, you're never awake. Now you're awakening. How do you get awakened? Many causality put together that you have this awakening. Maybe your friend, maybe you watch a TV show, or maybe anything can make you awakened to enlightenment. Anything that can push you down to hell. Anything that can elevate you to heaven. It depends on where you go. So that's awakening enlightenment. And finally, what is this? Ultimate, fully enlightenment. Now, when you have awakening enlightenment, you continue to pursue. You learn the prajna paramitas. You learn the Buddhist teaching. You not just learning it, you practiced it. You practice it life after life, day after day. If this life is not successful, the next life, and you continuously practice until you get this ultimate enlightenment. You become the Buddha. Once you become this enlightened, ultimate enlightenment, you're not going to revert back to suffering again. So the mind is diluted, your mind, our mind is diluted, but that mind also helps us to clear of that delusion and go to complete ultimate enlightenment. So you don't blame your own mind. Your mind is the convict, but then your mind is the saint. It's one thing. It's just like fire. It helps you and it also burns you. Just like water. It floats the boat, it also sinks the boat. So we choose the middle way. Don't go extremes. This mind is no good, or this mind extremely good. It's both. There is neither this and neither that. When you ask the questions, or when you answer, is it that or is it this? The Buddha said, it's not this and not that. So how much we have covered today? 2 sentences. But that's good. It's like that. We can talk about this sutra for years. And because one sentence contains so much profundity of philosophy in it that we cannot just ignore it. And now we finished, officially we finished chapter 18. So next time we're going to go chapter 19.